Drones are hard power. There's nothing subtle or graceful about lethal flying machines. But hard power can only get you so far. You also need soft power. Some countries organically develop it, others just buy it. And seems like sports is on everyone's shopping list. West Asia is leading the way. They're using petrodollars to buy sports clubs and leagues. Manchester United could be the latest. They're in talks with a Qatari businessman, Manchester United, and this businessman is the son of their former prime minister, so it's pretty much a government-backed deal. How much is Qatar offering? $6 billion to buy the whole club. But there's a rival bid on the table. It's come from British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe. Now, reports say the Qatari offer is better, so right now the club is considering granting exclusivity to Qatar. What does that mean? Exclusivity means the club can only negotiate with Qatar. The other buyers are out for that period. It's certainly a good sign for Qatar. They could soon own one of the most iconic clubs in football. It's massive, but it's not unprecedented. Gulf countries do own multiple clubs already. The UAE owns Manchester City. A Saudi group owns Newcastle United, and a Qatari businessman owns PSG. At least these are clubs. In the case of golf, Saudi Arabia has bought the entire sport, and I'm not even joking. Golf was run by a non-profit called PGA. They contracted players and they ran all the major events across the world. But last year, Saudi Arabia launched their own league. It's called LIV Golf. One by one, they poached PGA players. They offered them hundreds of millions of dollars. At first, the PGA objected. They filed legal cases against players who joined LIV Golf. But now, they've done a U-turn. Earlier this month, PGA and LIV Golf decided to make peace. They're calling it a merger. But let's be real. This is a hostile takeover by Saudi Arabia. There are two obstacles, though. I mentioned that PGA was non-profit. As a result, they paid no taxes in the United States. But Congress wants to change that. American politicians want to strip PGA of its tax-exempt status, and that could affect Riyadh. Secondly, the U.S. Department of Justice is probing this merger. They fear it could limit competition, perhaps violate antitrust laws. Either of these could derail the merger. Now, if you're sitting in India and thinking it's only golf, well, think again. Saudi Arabia is also coming after cricket. They're planning something like the IPL. Reports say the International Cricket Council, the ICC, will soon sanction it. Now, cricket leagues are not new. Australia has them. So do South Africa, England and Pakistan. But none of them come close to the IPL, and that's where Saudi Arabia is different. Their league could potentially cannibalize the IPL. How? By contracting Indian players. Now, we know the Indian board, the BCCI, does not allow Indian players to compete abroad. They play only in the IPL. Saudi Arabia wants to change that. They're looking to offer all-year contracts to Indian players, basically make cricket like football. Clubs will come first, countries second. Take any sport, and this is what's happening. Saudi Aramco is one of the biggest sponsors in Formula One. Some Gulf states are also shopping for NBA teams. It's an unprecedented sports takeover, one that covers every sport and every league, which also means there is a lot of criticism. You see, these clubs are part of a legacy. So the argument is toxic Gulf states are buying up that legacy. But the clubs will be tainted by the purchase, which is a fair argument. Sports washing is happening all around us. But let's not pretend all the previous owners were symbols of purity. There were enough shady characters going around. Meet Donald Sterling. He owned NBA team Los Angeles Clippers for 30 years. He's been accused of sexual harassment and racism. In fact, he used the N-word to describe his players. Sterling holds a unique record in the US. He was federally prosecuted for racism. Imagine that. Another example is Silvio Berlusconi, the former Italian prime minister who passed away this week. He owned football club AC Milan. His controversies have their own Wikipedia page. Sexual harassment, underage sex, financial irregularities, praising Mussolini. The list is pretty long. Then you have Russian oligarchs. They own clubs across Europe. Roman Abramovich owned Chelsea from 2003 to 2022. Others include AS Monaco, Sydney FC, and AFC Bournemouth. Nobody objected until Russia invaded Ukraine. So my point is this: sports washing is not new. Rich and problematic men have always dominated sports. Now there are rich, problematic, and Arab men. And I'm not saying that justifies it. I'm only saying that the outrage should have started decades ago. The politics of sports is all about one thing: money. Why did these club owners sell to Gulf states in the first place? Why did they not protect the legacy? Because money. We used to say that sports is a vehicle for change, for reform, for activism. But today it's a political pawn. If you have the money, the pawn is yours.